The North had a lot of advantages during the Civil War, but one that most people forget and ignore is the number of African Americans who served bravely as spies for the Union. These black spies helped provide information, intelligence, and carry out top secret missions to help the North all throughout the war. And today we're here to explore the lives of 3 amazing African American spies in the Civil War. So buckle up, kids, because we're off to the past. This is History for Little Humans. And before we get going, I just want to share with you guys my very first book, Spies in the Civil War for Kids, a history book. It's got amazing tales of action and adventure. There are illustrations and maps and pull-out quotes and top secret information, and I know you're going to love it. So you can check it out on my website, and there's direct links below. But now, let's get into it. Harriet Tubman is most famous for her role as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. But students, this was not a real railroad, but a secret route to help enslaved people from the South escape to freedom in the North. But then, during the war, Harriet Tubman became one of the Union's most heroic spies. She first served as a nurse, helping wounded soldiers, and she also snuck behind Confederate lines to help enslaved people to escape to Union camps. Recognizing her skills, she was then recruited to be a spy. And she would disguise herself with multiple personas, but her favorite was a gentle old woman. And she courageously went behind enemy lines where she would talk with enslaved workers and recruit a huge network of informants and spies, collecting intelligence for Union officers. Then, in South Carolina, Tubman conducted her most daring mission, which became known as the Combahee River Raid. She was actually placed second in command and helped to plan and also to carry out the attack. From her spy network, she knew the locations of mines in the river and where Confederates were stationed. On the raid, they torched rebel fortifications, storehouses, and their plantations. They stole supplies and freed more people than any other single mission in American history. And it was the first military operation in the Civil War planned and led by a woman, and a formerly enslaved woman at that. But despite her service, the government shamefully denied her a pension for more than 30 years, which shows that even after the Civil War, African Americans continued to face discrimination and mistreatment. But that brings us to our quiz flash from the past. How many enslaved people do you think were freed by Tubman's Combahee River Raid? 500, 700, 1,000, or 10,000? Raise your hand if you guessed B, 700. You got it right. And even cooler than that, over 200 of those men then volunteered to serve as soldiers to help the Union. John Scoble is one of the most important black dispatches in the war, and black dispatches was just the name given to escaped slaves who worked as spies. Scoble was born enslaved in Mississippi, but was educated and later freed by his owner. He was intelligent and a talented actor who loved role-playing. And during the war, he put his acting skills to use, taking on the disguise of servants, cooks, and merchants. He worked with the Union's top spy, Timothy Webster, often pretending to be his servant. Webster and Scoble were often in the most dangerous of circumstances, chasing after Confederate spies and breaking up secret plots. Then their cover was blown, and he and Webster were arrested by Confederate forces. Webster was executed for being a spy, but Scoble was such a talented actor, he convinced them that he was just a slow-witted servant. The Confederates bought it, and they set him free, having no idea that they had just released one of the Union's top spies. Now, some historians believe that Scoble himself was just a fictional character that was made up from stories of other black spies in order to keep their identities safe. But one thing that we know for sure is that black dispatches were vital in helping the Union win the war, and few were braver than our last spy, who worked directly under the President of the Confederacy himself. You might remember from our last video on women spies of the Civil War that Elizabeth Van Lew ran the Richmond Ring, spying on the Confederates right in their very capital city. Van Lew had spies all throughout the city, but her most important one was Mary Jane Bowser. Bowser had actually been born enslaved to Van Lew's family, but was sent to Philadelphia to get a formal education, and then, like all of Van Lew's slaves, was set free. When war broke out, Bowser wanted to do what she could to help to take down the Confederates. First, she spied around the Confederate capital, and then she was stationed in a prison where she would listen in on conversations and collect whatever information she could. Finally, though, she was moved to the White House of the Confederacy, where President Jefferson Davis lived and where he conducted the war. This was an absolute goldmine for any spy, but it was also incredibly dangerous if she were caught. So Bowser pretended to be a slow-witted, aloof, and easily confused slave, and leaders didn't think twice about having conversations with her right in the room. Not thinking that she could read, letters, reports, and maps were left out in the open. But not only was she literate, some believed she had a photographic memory and could memorize everything she saw. Even when President Davis feared that spies were about, he never suspected for an instant that an enslaved black woman could outsmart even him and his top men. So the Civil War not only saved the Union, it led to the end of slavery. And black dispatches, men and women like these three and hundreds of others who served the country bravely in the shadows, have often been ignored by history, but they deserve to be remembered and honored. And that's why history matters, because it's the light that guides us forward. And if you enjoyed this episode and learned something along the way, could you just take 1 second and click and show it? And you can hit subscribe too to get updates when we drop new episodes every week. This has been History for Little Humans.